My husband's secretary slipped an envelope into my bag discreetly and whispered, "Maria, it's about your husband. Read it at home." Very important. I was confused and rushed home, but when I opened the envelope, I froze in horror. But before we continue, please write in the comments which country you're from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. Maria woke to an unfamiliar silence, so smooth she wanted to run her hand over it to make sure it was real. The clock on the wall showed 6 in the morning. Normally, Vera would already be shuffling around in her slippers, and Stepper would be slamming the closet door looking for his gym clothes. Today, not a sound. On the fridge was a short note from Andre. "Meeting. Will be back late." That same word, late, which had replaced everything else in recent months. "Sorry, we'll talk later. I miss you." When the door closed behind the kids, the apartment shrank, as if someone had let the air out of it. Maria picked up crumbs, wiped the table, tucked the folder with the report for the methodologist into her bag, and noticed Andre's card at the door, the one he always got nervous without. Forgot it again, she thought, tossing it into her bag. She typed a message. "I'll drop it off." The blue checkmark for read appeared instantly. No reply. The methodologist wasn't there. Meeting, of course. The word of the day, Maria thought with a sour smile. Outside, snow was falling, the asphalt gleaming like glass. She stood in front of the school, suddenly calculating like it was a simple math problem. The card in her bag, Andre's office 3 stops away, 1 hour until the next class. I'll go, give it to him, and keep going, she decided, feeling an unexpected relief at the simplicity of the plan. Andre's office always felt like a glass aquarium where polite fish in expensive suits swam. The lobby smelled of coffee and chlorine. Maria gave her last name, got a visitor pass, and caught herself adjusting her scarf as if preparing for a parent-teacher meeting. On the 4th floor, the carpet reminded her of wet asphalt. The lamps hummed. Irina, Andre's secretary, hurried toward her. She was younger in person than her voice suggested. Delicate wrist, subtle earrings, crisp blouse. Only her eyes seemed older. "Maria?" she asked softly, as if afraid of startling an invisible bird. "Yes, just for a moment. I need to give Andre something." Maria held up the card, but Irina nodded and stepped closer. Her fingers barely grazed the edge of Maria's bag, as if adjusting the strap, and something white and solid slipped inside. "Please," Irina whispered, so quietly the word was almost a touch. "It's about your husband. Read it at home. It's very important." Maria blinked, wanted to ask more, but behind the glass wall, Andre walked down the hallway, fast, staring at his phone. He didn't look up. Irina averted her gaze, ending the scene. Maria nodded into the void and headed to the elevator, gripping the bag's strap like it was a handrail on a slippery staircase. Outside, the snow turned to fine mist. Maria walked quickly, eyes down. Her mind spun with less painful possibilities. Work documents meant for the wife to deliver personally, a whistleblower report to intercept, an internal conflict where Andre was right and Irina too emotional. But the tone of "read it at home" held something else. Not a game, not a scheme, but necessity. Home as the only place to unpack the truth without prying eyes. She opened the door with her key and, for the first time in ages, didn't take off her coat. She set the bag on the table, unzipped it. The white envelope lay calmly beside her wallet and tissues, as if it had always ridden to work with her. No logo, no signature, sturdy paper, slightly rough edge. Inside were documents. She spread them out like a fan on the table. First, flight tickets, Kovalyov Andrei Sergeyevich. Travel dates from the past year and a half. Moscow, Kazan, Moscow. Moscow, St. Petersburg, Moscow. Moscow, Sochi, Moscow. Dates. Her finger traced them. March matched. October matched. August. August. Sochi. In August, he'd flown to Novosibirsk. Back then, Vera lost her first tooth. Stepa rode the metro alone for the first time, and Andrei wrote, "Negotiations dragging on. Don't wait." One message had a photo of a flight board. Now Sochi and Novosibirsk lay side by side on the table, like two mismatched puzzle pieces. Second, a bank statement. Transfers from his card to Kuznetsova SV. 2 entries a month, sometimes 3. Amounts not glaring enough to scream, but too big to ignore. 8,000, 11,000, 6,000. In neat handwriting with blue ink on the margin, Svetlana, Sochi. Name, city, a bold period at the end of the line. Third, a photo. Andrei leaning on a railing by a promenade, elbow propped up, holding a red balloon with a superhero. Next to him, a woman, about 30, in a light dress, tanned shoulders, squinting against the sun. Between them, a boy in a Panama hat, 4 or 5 years old, with round, scratched knees. He held Andrei's hand the way you hold a trusted adult, securely, without question. In the background, a striped parasol, the sea. Something cracked in Maria's chest. She brought the photo closer. The familiar profile, the little cowlick at the back of his head, the crease at his lips. No mistake, no mix-up. The boy's fingers gripped Andrei's familiar knuckles, and that said everything. At the bottom of the envelope were 2 printouts. Screenshots of chats, names hidden, just initials. A. Landed. How's everyone? Is the fever down? Kindergarten tomorrow? You promised Wednesday? A. Can't. Meeting rescheduled. Transfer sent today. S. Okay. He's asking when you're coming. And a small yellow note. If needed, I'll tell you everything. Irina. No number, no address. But Maria already knew Irina's address. 4th floor, glass doors, carpet like wet asphalt. She sat before these 4 things, tickets, statement, photo, note, and thought of what she once considered terrible truths. A bad grade for the kids, a failed lesson, a cracked sink. The real truth was silent. It just lay on the table, taking up all the space. The phone buzzed at the table's edge. Andrei. Late tonight. Don't wait. Pick up the kids at Mom's. The same words as 100 times before. But now they read differently, like an address in someone else's handwriting. Maria typed, "We need to talk. Tomorrow after work." Period. Sent. The reply came fast. Okay. She put the papers back in the envelope in the bottom drawer of the buffet, where batteries and old manuals lived, not to hide it from herself or the kids. Vera could read faces, and Stepa heard pauses in voices. She couldn't let a stranger's photo lie nearby. Soon, the kids came home. Vera talked about a new girl in class, Polina, and how they played hospital. Stepa grumbled about bad physics lessons and went to do math. That familiar noise was the only thing keeping her afloat. Later, when the kids were asleep, Maria pulled out the envelope again, looked at the photo, and said unexpectedly loudly, "He's not to blame." The meaning hit her a second later. The boy wasn't at fault. That knowledge didn't save her, but it gave her a bearing. She brewed strong tea, leaned against the cool window. A street lamp glowed in the courtyard, snow falling at an angle. Someone laughed loudly in the neighbor's kitchen. Maria set the phone on the sill and said half aloud, without looking at the screen, "Tomorrow." Maria woke with a heavy head. In the night, she'd dreamed. Andrei's voice behind a door, children's laughter in another room, and she stood in the hallway, unsure who to go to. She woke thinking, this is real. The envelope isn't a dream. The kids bickered as usual over whose turn it was to take out the trash. Maria listened to their voices, feeling everyday worries keep her above water. But beneath those sounds was something else. A deep hum, like a fridge. The knowledge that Andre lived in two worlds. She saw her husband through memory's eyes, carrying Vera when she had bronchitis, explaining math to Stepper with funny faces instead of numbers, getting up at night to fix a leaky faucet. All that had been real. But now those images were layered with another. The man in the photo with a stranger's child. At school, Maria tried to act normal. She graded essays, asked questions, nodded at students, but words like honor, loyalty, and betrayal cut into her ears. A girl read at the board, "The hero of our time is a man who is his own enemy." Maria almost laughed at the bitter precision. During the break, colleagues talked about salaries, renovations, TV shows. Maria stayed quiet, only smiled. In her head, one thought spun. Who to tell? Her mother? A friend? But how could she say aloud that her husband might be the father of another child? The words would turn suspicion into fact. After class, she went to a bank branch. She wanted to ask about the card, but stopped herself in time. Without authorization, they'd tell her nothing. On the street, she leaned against a wall for a moment. Ridiculous. She'd always thought herself observant, yet missed the most important thing. She remembered a call in August. "Maria, I have a meeting. Don't wait." Back then, she thought it was just work. Now every meeting sounded like a code. That evening, she searched social media for Svetlanas in Sochi. Dozens of profiles. One had a boy, about 5, in a photo. Maria stared for a long time. Smile, eyes, but no proof. She turned off the phone. She had no strength left. Maria made a decision. Tomorrow, talk to Irina. Today, she wasn't ready. She didn't fear confirmation so much as the details. Dates, words, things you couldn't unsee. When Andre called that evening, his voice was tired but calm. "Everything's fine. Tomorrow's packed. How are you?" Maria gripped the phone, wanting to say, "An envelope came, I know." Instead, she said, "The kids are fine. Homework's done." The call ended dryly, like a chat between neighbors. At night, Maria sat with tea in the kitchen. Doubts pulled in every direction. Maybe a mistake. Maybe Irina made it up. Maybe the photo was a coincidence. But the tickets and transfers were too clear. She imagined Andre coming home tomorrow, setting down his bag, taking off his coat, looking at her. What would she say? "I know." Explain. Or just silently place the photo before him? Scenarios swirled in her head. All led to the same point. There was no way back. At 2 a.m., she wrote to Irina. "We need to talk tomorrow, outside the office." She deleted and rewrote until it was curt and clear. Sent. The reply came in 5 minutes. "Fine. Name the time and place." Maria turned off the phone and felt, for the first time in 2 days, "Tomorrow, I have a plan. A terrible one, but a plan." She lay down with the kids. Their room smelled of warm blankets and mint toothpaste. Vera snuggled against her in her sleep. Maria closed her eyes and thought, no matter what tomorrow brings, I have to stay their mother. Maria barely slept. Every half hour, she checked the phone, as if it could offer a solution. By morning, everything was clear. She wouldn't endure the silence. First Irina, then Andre. A coffee shop in the courtyard of an old building seemed safe. It didn't smell like home or the cold of office hallways. Behind the counter, a barista in a knit beanie quietly sorted coffee cans. Maria sat by the window, back to the room. Her fingers were clasped so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Irina arrived on time. No business suit, no starched blouse, just a plain grey sweater, hair down. She sat across and immediately lowered her eyes. "Thank you for coming," Maria began. "I need facts." "I'll tell you everything," Irina said, hands on her knees, as if afraid to gesture. "Andrei's been going to Sochi for over 2 years. At first rarely, then more often. There's a woman there, Svetlana, and they have a son." The word son hit Maria so hard she almost pushed the chair back, but she held steady. "Are you sure?" she asked dully. "I saw him a few times on video calls. Andrei called from an apartment, and the boy was in the frame. He called him Seryoja. I'm not making this up." Maria pressed her lips together. The name was worse than the photo. A photo could be put away. A name stuck in your head. "Why did you get involved?" she asked. Irina shrugged. "Because it became unbearable to watch and stay silent. I know it's not my business, but I saw you in the office. It felt unfair." Maria closed her eyes briefly. Then she said, "That's enough. I don't want to know more from you." Irina nodded. Relief and guilt mixed in her eyes. At home, Maria didn't wait until evening. She called Andrei right away. "Come over, we need to talk." "Maria, I have a meeting," he started in his usual tone. "Reschedule it, or we'll talk in court later." Pause. A heavy breath. "I'll be there in half an hour." She cleared toys off the table, turned on the kettle, and pulled out the white envelope. The kids were at her mother's. Instinct had told her to leave them there. The house felt empty, but in that emptiness, there was room for the conversation she both dreaded and craved. Andrei arrived quickly, as always, took off his shoes, hung his coat, sat across from her, and saw the envelope. His face was stone. Only a twitch at the corners of his eyes betrayed tension. Maria slid the envelope over. "Open it." He obeyed, laying out the papers. Tickets, statement, photo. His gaze lingered longest on the boy. A second. Then he hid his eyes. "Where'd you get this?" he asked calmly. "Doesn't matter. What matters is what it is." He clasped his hands. "I was going to tell you." Maria laughed bitterly. "When? After Vera's graduation, or when we bump into you on the beach?" Andrei pressed his lips together. "It wasn't planned? Yes, Sveta. Yes, a child. I didn't mean for it to happen, but when he was born, I couldn't just disappear. I thought I could live on two fronts." The words sounded like a defense, but his voice lacked strength. "His name's Seryoja?" Maria asked. He looked up. "Who told you that?" "Answer." "Yes," he said quietly. Maria felt something sink in her chest. Now it all fit. The boy in the photo, the transfers, the tickets, the name. "I'm not asking why," she said. "That's pointless. I'm telling you what happens next. You go to her." Andrei stared at the table. "I don't know. I don't want to lose you and the kids, but I can't abandon him either." "You already abandoned," Maria said. "Us. Every time you lied." He lowered his head. "It's my fault. But let's start over. I'll tell you everything. No more later." Maria looked into his eyes. "Two conditions. First, no more business trips, just the truth. Second, you tell the kids, not tomorrow, but soon. They need to hear it from you." Andrei paled. "They're young. They're sensitive," Maria cut in. "They already sense everything." He nodded. For the first time, his eyes glistened. "You're giving me a chance." "I'm giving you a chance to end this honestly." Andrei went to his mother's. Maria closed the door and leaned her forehead against it. The house breathed with her. Later, she picked up the kids. Vera chatted about school. Stepa complained about physics. Everything felt familiar. But in those sounds, Maria heard a future that had to be rebuilt. When the kids were asleep, Stepa came for water. "Mom, are you and Dad fighting?" "We're talking," she said. "It's like fighting, but more useful." He nodded and left. Maria stayed alone in the kitchen, pulled out the envelope, looked at the photo. Now she knew the boy's name and thought, "This child is innocent. The only one guilty is the one who put us all on different sides." She put the photo back, closed the envelope, and tucked it in the drawer. This time with the thought, this conversation isn't the end. It's the start of what she had to endure. Maria woke with a surprising sense of clarity, not relief. That wasn't there yet, but the usual whirlwind in her head was gone. Everything was direct and cold, like a winter road. She made breakfast for the kids, checked their homework. Andrei came at 8, bringing rolls. Vera was delighted. Stepa stayed quiet. Maria watched from the side. The kids were cheerful. Andrei seemed to play the role of caring father, afraid of forgetting his lines. After breakfast, she said calmly, "Andrei, tonight we're going to the notary." He froze, cup in hand. "Notary? I've filed the papers. It's not a threat. It's a fact." He started to speak, but Maria raised her hand. "We have time to discuss everything, but I've drawn the line." He paced the kitchen like a caged animal. "Maria, you're destroying everything," he burst out. "We can try. I'm ready for therapy, ready to explain to the kids." "You're confused," she said. "I'm not destroying. You destroyed. I'm picking up the pieces." He pressed his hands to his face. "I don't want to lose you." "You lost when you chose the lie," she said. "I'll stay as the mother of your kids, but not as your wife." The words sounded calm, almost formal. That's why they were stronger than shouts. That evening, before leaving, Maria gathered the kids. "Dad and I will live separately," she said simply, "but you'll always be with both of us." Vera cried. Stepa frowned and went to his room. 10 minutes later, he came back and asked, "Is it because of the boy in the photo?" Maria inhaled. "Yes," she said honestly, "but that's a grown-up decision. You're not to blame." Stepa nodded, too serious for his age. Vera hugged her and whispered, "Mum, as long as you're with us." At the notary, everything was dry and quick. Signatures, stamps, visitation schedules. Maria held the pen firmly. Andrei signed like someone hoping for a reprieve. As they left, he said quietly, "Maybe there's still a chance?" Maria looked at him directly. "There's a chance to stay a decent father. That's enough." He nodded and didn't argue for the first time. A week later, Maria moved into an apartment near the school. Small kitchen, 2 windows in the living room, the smell of fresh paint. The kids helped hang curtains. Vera made signs. "My room." Stepa built a shelf. They ordered pizza that evening. Maria looked at the kids and thought, "I didn't want this war, but if it's here, I've earned my right to a life without lies." A month later, Andrei came to pick up the kids. He looked older than before. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "Maria, thank you for not closing the door on me as a father." "Kids shouldn't lose their dad," she replied. "But you only had one wife, and you lost her." He nodded, didn't argue, and left. Maria closed the door and, for the first time in a long time, didn't lean her forehead against it. She went to the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and smiled at her thoughts. Life hadn't gotten easier, but it was more honest. And that was a beginning, not an end.